So yeah.
Okay.
So like I told a couple people that like no, it's not true, and I had to bring out the book, even though I don't own the book. I had to go. Here's a book. What does it say in it? Fiction? Yeah. So this is what happens the rest of the story.
Okay.
The in April of 1821, shortly after Betsy Bell had broken off her engagement, the entity visited John Bell's widow Lucy and told her that it was leaving, but it would return in 7 years. The entity
Right.
returned in 1828 as promised. Most of the return visits centered on John Bell Jr., from which the entity discussed the origins of life, civilization, Christianity, and the need for a major spiritual reawakening in the country. A particular significance, it predicted the American Civil War and other major events, some of which she missed.
Hmm.
Which, to be honest, everyone could have predicted the American Civil War back then. It was inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can get how people couldn't have though, because rich people get into it all the time. No, I could totally see nobody thinking that it'll actually mean a war that they were going to be forced to fight.
Right, right.
But yeah.
Yeah. The entity bid fell well after 3 weeks, promising to visit John Bell's most direct descendant in 107 years' time. The year would be 1935, and the closest living descendant at the time of the Nashville was a Nashville physician, Dr. John Baisley Bell, a neurologist and John Bell Sr.'s great grandson. In 1934, Dr. Bell published a book about the Bell Witch, raising the awareness of it, which was the first ever account of the alleged conferences between the entity and John Bell Jr. in 1828. The author's father, Dr. Joe Thomas Bell, allegedly taking notes during the conference and upon his death passed them down to Dr. Charles Bailey Bell. Dr. Bell published no follow-up to his 1934 book. He died in 1945. It is not known whether the Bell Witch returned in 1935.
Okay.
Now, supposedly, people say that that area is still haunted. Some people think that the Bell Witch had went into what is known as the Bell Witch Cave.
The Bell Witch Cave?
Yes, there is a cave that's near the property, the old Bell farm and property. That it, even though it's a little bit of ways away, supposedly people say that they went into this Bell Witch Cave. People who've gone down the cave have heard voices that sound like seen apparitions of what they say is a little old lady that was down there. They hear voices, hear like rocks being thrown, stuff like that. What you would hear at a typical haunted house. Like supposedly doing a trip in 1977, 5 soldiers from the nearby Fort Campbell facility had went into the Bell Witch Cave. One of the soldiers was sitting on a rock and expressed skepticism of the legend when something invisible grabbed him around the chest, reported from one of the soldiers.
Huh.
One person who's from Adams, Tennessee, who knows about the Bell Cave, recounted a time in her childhood back in 1944 when she went exploring around the cave. She left her English class playing hooky and borrowed a lantern from the cave owner at that time. She reported to have explored the cave with her friends for several years. While she was inside, her lantern blew out despite no breeze being inside the cave. She managed to relight the lantern and blew out again. Terrified, she crawled among the water path of the cave in the dark until she reached the entrance, where she saw an open can of pork and beans and marshmallows. Later that evening, she learned law enforcement discovered 2 escaped fugitives in the back of the cave. She credited the witch with helping her avoid them.
Why are they eating pork and beans and marshmallows? First of all, let's have that conversation.
Because they're escaped fucking convicts, and that's what
pork
you
and
can get.
beans and marshmallows.
You've
Okay.
you've never been out in the
No,
wilderness.
I've never escaped to the wilderness. This is true.
Even for a camping trip, pork and beans and marshmallows. Man, first of all, it's
Together.
an easy meal because you just get a can opener and just put them over the open fire, and you watch the pork and beans cooking. Marshmallows is a sugar. Even though it's a sugar, it's a fat-free snack. Yeah, it's a fat-free snack. I mean, s'mores, roasted marshmallows around the fire. You know, you need to go camping. This is what you need to do. You'll appreciate a thing of Wheatie on a stick you then whittled down, found in the forest and whittled down to be able to slap your Wheatie on there, and your can of pork and beans that you then poured out of your makeshift plate because you forget to buy MREs off of Amazon.
I'm sure the Bellwolf. I'm sure the Bell Witch would provide much better for me. I believe she would have my back much better than that.
Yeah. So people, yes. So people report like a bunch of things that's going on in this cave. Also, it was like they also warned you not. The legend goes, do not take any rocks or property off of the cave, otherwise you will have bad luck as long as you have it. Like people have literally taken things out of the cave, rocks, stuff like that, and reported like having like their car break down, them getting in an accident, them losing their job, losing their home, marriages dissolving, getting really sick, having to go to the hospital, bunch of things. So they end up like the owner of the cave said they usually get letters, like hundreds of letters every year for people who take rocks out of there, and they send them back and they mail them back on, please take this off of our hands.
Interesting. Yeah. This is, and I would love to talk to the people from this area to see what they think about this now. I mean, the book was written in 2000, but you know.
Well, there's a bunch of books written about it, lots of articles and lots of.
I mean, movies, right? You got the
movies. You have American Haunting that was done in 2006.
Blair Witch is the big one for me. I wish I would have known this story when I saw Blair Witch Project.
They mentioned like the thing is that they kind of don't base it. It's like it's sort of an inspiration of it, but they really don't count it as the main inspiration for the Blair Witch.
The witch in that movie is so much meaner than what is described here, but I can still see it.
It's a little bit like they mentioned, like there's documentaries they made off of that before like the movie came out, the Blair Witch. They do these documentaries. Like one of the more famous ones came on the the Sci-Fi Channel, where people thought it was like really real. Mm-hmm. But they mentioned the Blair Witch, but it's kind of, they don't really count it as, it's like it's an inspiration. The Blair Witch is inspiration of the Blair Witch, but they don't really count it as that. I don't know. It's God, what other movies they made off of it? The Blair Witch, the movie, which is a independent film.
I mean, there was a documentary just done in 2020, The Mark of the Bell Witch.
Yeah, by Seth Breedlove. The Bell Witch Haunting, which is a found footage film. Yeah, pass on that one. The Bell Witch Legend, which is a documentary, and Bell Witch. I said the Bell Witch movie, which stars Betsy Palmer. Oh, the Jason Voorhees played Jason Voorhees' mom in the first Friday the 13th.
Oh,
she's the voice of the witch.
Why do you even know that movie? That's a lot to know.
And like
plays have been written.
Yeah,
like several plays have been read. This is an
yeah.
interesting
This is
story.
this is in fabric, and like you want to talk to people who live there. Like it's kind of like a tourist trap. It's kind of the kind of almost like Point Pleasant, West Virginia, or um, Hopkinsville, Kentucky. They kind of want this as like, hey, this is the home of the Bell Witch. Come on down, the Bell Witch. Come see the Bell Witch Cave. Come go
Mm,
to the local museum. Come buy Bell Witch merchandise and stuff like that. They've kind of embraced it
mm.
almost. Like 2018, the Travel Channel was there filming Haunted Live.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, they were talking with descendants of the Bell family to take him to the cabin, which isn't happening. Which the cabin was torn down, but like on near their school and elementary school, they have a replica of the Bell Witch cabin that was there.
Okay. All right.
Ghost Adventures are filmed, but yeah, who gives a fuck? Hope they was swallowed by the like you said, plays were made about this. Yeah, it's oh sorry. Yeah, plays that made about this. So yeah, your thoughts? Sorry.
I think that the thing to me, as I said, in these tales that center women is the thought of how they got to the emotional place that they are. That's always been something that interested me, even when I was young. It's like, well, what happened to them? Why are they in this position? Because there's likely a reason. There's likely a really good reason. And especially during this time when you have the same time you have so many people being accused of being witches. A lot of it has to do with women, poor women, or just in some societies, being poor doesn't matter. You're just a woman, right? In a lot of these societies, it's a power situation. Like it's always a power situation. Even now, when you look at the continent of Africa, and there, that still is a very serious thing, accusing somebody of being a witch. I remember
Right.
recently there was like a baby. It was like a little baby, and it was a boy too. So I
Yeah.
didn't really understand that. Somebody accused this baby of being a witch, and the
Right.
parents, kind of put it out, and it was just on the street. Whoever would give it food, it was just it's so odd. Like this is still a thing. This is still an accusation that people can get,
Hmm.
including children, right? So
Right.
it's and so you have the issue with women that is
Hmm.
very very interesting to me, and I would love talking to people about that. But the fact that you have this kind of stuff still happening, it makes me think more of the lack of empowerment, or the stealing of empowerment, and even self-protection, that calling somebody a witch.
Right.
And it's interesting reading the history of it, because it was common. That's such an
Right.
odd part. That's just when I think it was so that even when it happens every now and again today, you do have a lot of people that push up that one eyebrow, like, well, so, oh, well, they do.
Yeah.
It's it's
Right.
it's it's just interesting. God, I don't think I have a better word for it. That's the thing that really gets me about it. And so and again, you have this particular story where you have this witch, you have
Mhm.
the history of this particular person who the husband who was killed. You
Mhm.
have the the particular issue of the young girl who was
Mhm.
abused, yet the witch had favorable thinkings about things that she did. It's
Mhm.
just interesting, and that's why I say I could totally see, even though it's not true now, I could totally see all of that being a creation of that child.
Right.
who was a child at the time she was gonna be married off to somebody,
Right.
but didn't want to be. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's
Right.
that seems like the most interesting part.
Mhm.